Today we're finally going to answer the question that's been bugging me since the year 2001. And it all started with this machine right here. This is a Dell Dimension 4300 that we bought in the year 2001. And if you were buying a computer in 2001, your choice would look something like this. A Pentium 4 machine with ridiculously overpriced, expensive RDRAM, RAM bus memory. Or you could get a cheaper machine with the same Pentium 4, only using old-fashioned PC133 memory. Or you could get a budget Intel Celeron machine, which is basically a cut-down Pentium 3, and often it was available without any HGP slots, so it was completely not suitable for gaming. Now, the machine that would have actually given you the best performance for your money would have been an AMD Athlon machine with DDR memory. Unfortunately, in 2001, none of the big brand name manufacturers like HP or Dell, they were not willing to sell you an AMD machine. So if you want an AMD Athlon machine, you had to basically build it yourself. This Dell machine is equipped with a 1.6 GHz Pentium 4 processor with the Willamette core sitting under this passive heatsink right here, 512 megs of PC133 memory, and the CPU is cooled with this fan that's covered with the shroud here. So it's actually a pretty quiet system overall, but the airflow, not very good. Down here we have a GeForce 2 MX video card, which was a very popular budget card at the time, and I actually paid a little bit extra for it because the base option was some ATI Rage that was already hopelessly obsolete at the time. And actually, when this computer was in use, this video card worked the whole time without a heatsink. So I put this heatsink on myself because the idea of running a video card without a heatsink seems kind of ridiculous to me. Down here we have a 56K modem that was actually used to access the internet back when we bought the computer. Down here is a network card, an Ethernet card that was later used to access internet when we got broadband. And on the bottom here is a Sound Blaster Live sound card. And for comparison, we're going to use a second system using the same Pentium 4 Willamette 1.6 GHz processor, only this time equipped with 512 megs of DDR memory running at equivalent clock speed of 266 megahertz, which is the kind of memory that would have been available at the time. And I'm also going to use the same GeForce 2 MX video card and the same Sound Blaster Live sound card. Our first game is Return to Castle Wolfenstein using the normal quality preset and 1024x768 resolution. On the left side we have the PC133 system, the right side DDR266, and you can see in both cases we're getting around 30 frames per second. Some drops into the mid-20s, but mostly they're similar performance around 30 or 35 frames per second. Max Payne, 1024x768 resolution, medium quality preset with trilinear filtering. You get very similar performance in the 40s and 50s. Under heavier action, the PC133 system sometimes drops into the 30s, whereas the DDR system stays mostly about 40. But for the most part, the performance is comparable between the two systems. No One Lives Forever 2, using resolution 1024x768 and the low quality preset, and also I turned off the detailed textures for better performance. So here we're getting performance mostly in the high 20s to mid 30s, and you can see that both systems perform similarly. Typically getting 30 frames per second, but when the action gets heavier and there's a lot of things happening on the screen, it drops solidly into the 20s. So I think this is an indicator that in this case we're limited by the video card, and it really doesn't matter what kind of system memory your system is running. GTA 3 using resolution 800 by 600 with 16-bit color. And we're getting performance solidly in a 29 to 30 frames per second. Just driving around. When the scene gets a little busier, it drops into the low 20s on both systems. So both systems seem to perform equally sucky, no matter what kind of memory you have installed. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2, 800 by 600 and 16-bit color, the second lowest car detail setting, the lowest special effects on world detail, and we enable the rearview mirror and track map. And here you can see there's a little bit of a difference. The DDR system gives you performance in the mid-30s, whereas the PC133 system oftentimes drops below 30 into the 20s. So the DDR system is going to give you a little bit smoother performance in this case. But in both cases, you're stuck using low resolution and low settings because the game is just noticeably demanding for both of these systems to handle no matter what kind of memory you have hooked up. Far Cry. We're playing this at 800 by 600 resolution, and all the advanced graphics options are set to the lowest possible setting.
Hey, some good news. I'm picking you up much more strongly now. I suggest you search the huts for weapons and equipment.
And in this game, both systems are struggling to maintain 30 frames per second, and oftentimes will drop below 30 into the 20s under more complex scenery and action. So the DDR system might give you a couple frames per second more in some cases, but overall during gameplay it feels comparable, and both systems are visibly struggling to run this game. Half-Life 2, running at 800 by 600 resolution and all the advanced graphics options set to the lowest possible setting. And here we can see that both systems are struggling, dropping below 20 frames per second under complex scenery. But as you keep playing, you can see that overall the DDR system gives you a little bit higher performance and can sometimes even amazingly reach 30 frames per second, whereas the other system is struggling and mostly stuck in the 20s. But at this point, it's pretty obvious that neither one of these systems is going to give you a very enjoyable gaming performance in Half-Life 2. So in conclusion, what did we learn? There was only a couple games that gave you a little bit higher performance with DDR memory, but in none of the cases was there a huge difference between one being playable and the other being non-playable, or that one would have allowed you to use a higher game setting, because pretty much across the board you were limited by the budget video card, which performed pretty well in the earlier games, but later on in games in 2004, realistically you would have been pretty unhappy with the GeForce 2 MX no matter what kind of memory system was connected to your CPU. So in the end, if you had to buy a budget gaming system in the year 2001 and you were stuck with PC133 memory, well, you can now safely relax knowing that you didn't lose much performance compared to what you could have gotten with a DDR system had it been available. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.